Madam President, last week the Senate Judiciary Committee, which I chair, held its hearing on the nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to serve as Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. It was an opportunity to learn a lot about her qualifications, her experience, her approach to cases, her judicial temperament, and her temperament before the committee. She proved to the public what many of us suspected and some knew. She's without a doubt ready to serve on the Supreme Court. I've spoken before about Judge Jackson's background and qualification, but some of it bears repeating because this is the critical week before we consider her nomination next week on the floor of the Senate. She's the daughter of two school teachers, public school teachers. Judge Jackson discovered her passion for the law at the age of 4. You see, her dad decided that to give up teaching, he had another profession in mind. He was going to become a lawyer. And so he would sit at the kitchen table with his law books all stacked up. And Judge Jackson, at the age of 4, would gather her coloring books and sit next to her daddy. She was going to study too. She believes that might have been the first time that she thought seriously about becoming a lawyer. After graduating from public high school in Miami, she had distinguished herself as president of the student body and as the lead on the high school speech and debate team. She competed nationally, successfully, and visited the campus of Harvard University. She loved it. She decided she was going to apply to go to school there. When she went back to her high school in Florida, she sat down with her counselor to talk about that option. The counselor discouraged her. She was aiming too high. But she did it anyway, and she was accepted, and then went on to Harvard Law School. She has clerked at every level of the federal judiciary. If you're not a lawyer, that may not mean much, but if you're a lawyer, it's a big deal. To think that she started off at the lowest federal district court level, clerking for a judge, then was accepted to move up a level to the circuit judge position to serve as a clerk as well, and then to finally grab the gold ring of being a Supreme Court clerk to none other than Justice Stephen Breyer, whose vacancy she's hoping to fill. She worked in private practice as a lawyer, and she proved that she was a consensus builder all the way along. On the bench, she served as a district court judge and now circuit court in the D.C. Circuit. It's no surprise that she's won the admiration and friendship of so many people throughout her career. In fact, she's come before the same Senate Judiciary Committee on 3 separate occasions with her background carefully reviewed and emerged with the approval of the committee with bipartisan support. In fact, when you look at it, if you watched last week's hearing before the Judiciary Committee, no one questioned her qualifications, her knowledge, her experience. She really has a platinum resume when it comes to that. On the final day of the hearing, the committee heard from Ann Williams. Ann Williams is well known to the presiding officer as well as myself. She served as a district court judge in the Northern District of Illinois and then as a circuit judge on the 7th Circuit. I believe she was the first African-American woman to do so. She's retired at this point, but she's volunteered with the American Bar Association to do the careful review of Judge Jackson to make certain that we know every comment that's been made by professionals who have been familiar with her work experience. Judge Williams is an anomaly politically. Those who are looking for evidence of whether she's Democrat or Republican, she was initially appointed to the district court by President Reagan and then to the circuit court by President Clinton, a bipartisan nominee all the way. She came to report to the committee that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, who had been reviewed with careful personal interviews of 250 separate individuals in her legal career, had emerged unanimously well qualified to serve on the Supreme Court. Judge Williams said that in interviewing these lawyers and judges, they asked the hard questions, the ones that you can ask in confidence and in private, and the answers were all the same. Judge Jackson has a career that has distinguished her as outstanding, excellent, superior, superb, The list of accolades went on and on. The ABA found that Judge Jackson has a sterling reputation for thoughtfulness and collegiality and exceptional competence. I also asked Judge Williams, serving as a spokesperson for the ABA, to comment on the allegations that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is somehow soft on crime. It's a common mantra coming from the other side of the aisle. And I said, in the course of asking 250 different judges, prosecutors, defense lawyers, and all the people who worked with and around her, was there any evidence that she was soft on crime? No, none. None. That's amazing when you think that's the number one talking point against her from the Republican side of the aisle. None whatsoever is exactly what Judge Williams said. Another ABA witness, Jean Vita, said that the ABA, quote, heard consistently from not only defense counsel, but from prosecutors of how unbiased Judge Jackson was throughout her career. And just as impressive as her qualifications was her performance and candor before the Senate Judiciary Committee. You ask her a question about stare decisis, she'll start by responding by defining it in plain English, just to make sure everybody at home, lawyer or non-lawyer, can follow along. She expresses her thinking with surgeon-like precision, which I'm sure her husband, Dr. Patrick Johnson, who is an actual surgeon at Georgetown University Hospital, deeply admires. Clarity and impartiality. That is Judge Jackson. During the hearing, several of my colleagues asked her to describe her judicial philosophy. Pick a label. Are you an originalist? Are you a textualist? Are you a liberal? Are you a conservative? Previous Supreme Court nominees like Chief Justice Roberts have said they do not have, quote, an overarching judicial philosophy that they bring to a case. That was a good enough answer for many Republicans if it was given by Chief Justice Roberts or Justice Amy Coney Barrett. But they complain now that she just won't come up and admit to a label. She did them one better. She gave us a thorough step-by-step explanation of how she decided a case, every case. And she has some 580 separate written opinions. You don't need an electron microscope to find this judge's judicial philosophy. She's written it down and published it over and over and over again. She established her independence, she says, by, quote, clearing her mind of any preconceived notions when she gets a case, sets aside her personal views, evaluates the facts, listens to the arguments, then she interprets and applies the law, keeping in mind the limits of judicial authority. What I've just described is what she told the committee, and it's exactly what we look for and should look for in every judge. I can't recall ever hearing a nominee give such a clear and thorough explanation of their approach to deciding a case. And Judge Jackson's even-handed record on so many different issues, criminal law, labor relations, executive powers, shows that it works. Finally, the Judiciary Committee hearing allowed the public to observe Judge Jackson's incredible judicial temperament. We spend a lot of time as senators with the authority under the Constitution to advise and consent, interviewing nominees for courts, trying to determine just what kind of a judge they will be. What will their temperament be? Will they be all swollen and big-headed over this black robe and lifetime appointment? Or will they remember the real-life experiences that many people in their courtroom have lived through? Well, I can tell you, Judge Jackson's temperament shone through. Frankly, she was tested time and again. You see, I might just go out on a limb and tell you, there are some senators that don't show a very good temperament themselves under these circumstances. And they tested her over and over again with baseless, wild charges, some of which were just offensive on their face. I listened to those and I would look up and think, if she stands up at this point and says, that's enough, I'm taking my family and I'm going home, nobody would have faulted her for it. Some of the questioning was just that bad, but she didn't. My Republican colleagues promised a fair and respectful hearing. The majority of them, starting with Senator Grassley, did just that, and I commended them for it today in the committee. They set an example of a minority party with a Supreme Court nominee and how the questioning should come down. Unfortunately, others, however, on that side of the table did not. But in the face of constant badgering, and interruptions, offensive insinuations by a select few Republicans, Judge Jackson never lost her composure, never. She was patient, calm, and dignified. Many times the questions were so mean-spirited, and I thought, there sits her husband and her daughter listening to these charges, how she's soft on crime and doesn't care about the plight of children. And you think about that, what they must think of to hear those things said about the doctor's wife and the kid's mother. It's just hard to take. She was patient, calm, and she did not lose her temper at one time. Some of my colleagues attended the committee's hearing intent on tearing her down. It didn't work. Instead, she showed America that she can rise to any challenge as a justice on the Supreme Court. And despite some of my colleagues' behavior in the committee hearings, last week was an inspiration for so many people across this country. I invited law students from Howard University and my alma mater, Georgetown Law, to come over and sit through the hearing. We invited interns from the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. They wanted to be there at this history-making moment. They watched her prove that through hard work, a commitment to the law, and in the words of Senator Booker, her grit and grace, she's earned a seat on the highest court in the land. I strongly urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to take a look at this woman and what she will bring to the court. It's time, America. After all these years, never having had an African-American woman serve on the court, it's got to be a challenge to find somebody who's ready to take on the job and take on the challenge. She can meet that challenge and will successfully. She is the best and deserves our support.